Hi, my name's Danny. I am a performer, director, theatre maker and puppeteer. And often I find that the best thing for me in my practice is to actually get up in the space and work. I want to be up trying things, testing things out, seeing how it goes. This is probably most relevant when I'm stuck behind a computer trying to type out a scene and not actually really knowing where it's going or what we can do from here. But it can be hard to get up in the space when it's 8 p.m. on a Tuesday night and you're in your pajamas and you don't have a rehearsal room at your disposal. Oftentimes, that's where I turn to puppetry. I'll turn to puppetry to help me work out where I'm going next, even in a work that doesn't necessarily involve puppets when it finally gets onto the stage. And that's where today comes in, a stumble through with Danny, using puppetry in my practice. I hope that was recording. Yes, it was. Go team. Woo! Winners are grinners. So one of the best things about being able to turn to puppetry to help you visualise a scene or an interaction between characters is that puppets do whatever you tell them to do. It's great. A director's best tool. Having an actor that isn't going to talk back. And so in today's workshop, we're going to have a look at how you can build your own rehearsal puppet using materials you probably already have at home, and how we can use those puppets in a small taste of what I do as a puppeteer. To build these puppets, you're going to need some paper. Now I use a lot of brown paper, so I always have some on hand, but you could use something you already have, like a newspaper or wrapping paper. We'll need some scissors and also some tape. I use masking tape, but you could use another type as well. Firstly, you need to cut a length of brown paper. The length doesn't matter too much, and you'll find out why in a minute. Once you've cut 2 lengths of paper, you need to scrunch them up like this. And then fold them into a shape somewhat like this. Next, we're going to tape around here. Down here. And also down here. And ta-da! It's something. And there you have it, the basics of a rehearsal puppet. You can personalise your puppet however you like. You might like to make a different sized head, add some clothing, or give your puppet fingers or claws. Think about how different features might bring characterisation to your puppet. What sort of puppet would have a tiny head or very long legs? Or both? So now that we have our puppets, we can have a look into how to use them in our practice. Now don't get me wrong, puppetry takes a long time to master and many hours of rehearsal and trying things in the rehearsal room that someone tells you don't look realistic at all. But what we can cover in this workshop is a few key principles or basic tips on how you can use puppetry in your work. So the 3 areas that I believe are really important to consider when using puppetry are breath, eyeline, and focus. So puppetry is the art of bringing an object to life. And what does every living thing do? It breathes. A puppet's breath is like the life force that you as a puppeteer can breathe into the puppet to bring it to life. A puppet's breath might be really obvious and heavy, or it could be subtle. Syncing your breath and the breath of your puppet is a great warm-up to do before you perform as a puppeteer, but it's also a really great way to get in sync with how your puppet moves and acts and what sort of personality it has. How can the breathing of the character encourage or change the characterization of the puppet that you have? So now that we've been able to breathe life into our puppets, it's time for one of the harder challenges with puppetry. And that's making an audience believe that this thing is real or alive. It's thinking for itself. It can be really hard for an audience to believe in something or to even understand something if they can't recognise it. Now, your puppet might not have eyes or a face even. But for your clarity as a puppeteer, it's really important for you to know where the eye line of the puppet is. For example, on my puppet, he has a little furrowed brow area here. So although he doesn't really have many face features at all, except for a pointy nose, I can use this furrowed brow to decide that his eyes are going to be in there. Now, if I was talking to my puppet, I would want to be looking towards his eye line. If I was talking to my puppet and looking over here, it wouldn't look very believable. Similarly, if my puppet was supposed to be communicating with you, if he was looking over here and talking to you, you're not going to be very interested. So take some time now to have a look at the puppet you've made and work out where this puppet's eye line could be. Have a play around and try and work on making the puppet look at certain objects and how clear that can be. So now you know how your puppet breathes and where its eye line is. Next is focus. Now, focus is a pretty big deal. It's something that can take you a long time to master, but it's a really great trick with puppetry, and here are some pointers on it. Now, this skill is especially transferable for directors working with real-life human actors. No offense. Now, as I'm talking to you, chances are you're looking at me. And why is that? Because I'm looking at you. You're probably ignoring Mr. Puppet down here because no one's giving him any focus. However, if I was to shift my focus to be like this, chances are your eye line is going to follow my eye line, and we can let the puppet take the stage. Now, as hard as it is for your ego, puppetry is the art of making the puppeteer disappear, and it's all about the puppet, for the most part. Though there's no hard and fast rule, a general rule is that your focus as a puppeteer should always be on the puppet. A fun way to play with focus, though, is to shift the focus from being on the puppet to being on something else. That way, we can become almost like an extension of the puppet's focus. Say, for example, your puppet sees something incredible in the distance. We can shift our focus from the puppet to the thing. Why don't you take some time now to play around with your puppet and play with focusing on your puppet and then focusing on what the puppet's looking at or interacting with. Now, remember, us humans are simple creatures. We can only really focus on one thing at a time, so try and keep it simple. Now, if there's anything that you're not quite sure on, feel free to go back and re-watch what we spoke about and have another play before you move on. Because now that we have a very basic understanding of some puppetry tips and tricks, let's go ahead and put them all together. I want you to think of an activity. It can be something really mundane, something boring that you do every single day. Break down what's involved in doing that action. If it's making a sandwich, what is every single step along the way? Then we're going to mimic that with our puppet, taking into consideration the puppet's breath and syncing that with our own as the puppeteer, taking into consideration the eye line. Now, when I make a sandwich, I am very focused on making sure that my knife has the correct amount of peanut butter and that that is going onto the sandwich. I'm not making a sandwich looking up like this, though that is my next achievement. And finally, concentrating on the focus. How do you as a puppeteer interact with this piece? Where's your focus? And don't forget, where do we want the audience to focus on? We as a puppeteer can control what the audience pays attention to based on our own eye line. When we're looking at something, the audience is probably going to be looking at that as well. So take some time, go away, think of an activity, and really practice doing that activity through your puppet. You might want to do it in front of a mirror, or ideally, once you're ready to, film yourself doing it. So now I'm going to give it a go, so if you want to, you can watch mine before you go ahead and give it a try yourself.
Oh, I don't know.
And then we have it. That brings us to the end of our workshop today. Thank you so much for taking the time to participate and to try along with me. I really hope that you did learn something today and that possibly it's ignited a little spark in your theatre making or your performing practice. Hopefully you'll be able to use puppets when you don't have an actor to use with or when you want to test something out. Now myself and everyone else on the Stumble team would love to see pictures of your rehearsal puppets that you've made and how you've been able to personalise them, or video of you trying out your activity. So we would love for you to share that with us, and hopefully we'll see you on the Zoom catch-up on the 1st of August. Thank you so much everyone, hope you have a great day.